So good morning everyone. Is it a happy day with food in the stomach? Or is that a silly question? Most people are surprised that they're not as hungry as they presumed that they would be. That's because over the last 2 days we have fed you very, very well. You couldn't eat in a day what we put in your juices. So you've had peak nourishment over the last 2 days. What we're going to begin with now is we're going to go through the true remedies. And in the little book Ministry of Healing, it's on page 127, a remarkable book. It's one of my first health books, written by an author from the late 1800s, early 1900s. She wrote more than any other woman author. She wrote a lot about Bible subjects, but she also wrote a lot about health. And the book, The Ministry of Healing, there's a chapter called The Physician, the Educator. Did you know that that's what physician means? Educate. And I'm afraid that doesn't happen anymore, does it? So in the chapter, The Physician, the Educator, she lists some very interesting basic principles to bring about healing in the body. And she lists the laws, well, we call them the laws of health. Florens Najtingejl called these the laws of nursing. Dr. Džekson in New York in the mid-1800s, he had a health retreat with a board of doctors, and he said, in 20 years I have never used a drug. What he used was these basic laws of health. He called them laws of life. So laws of life, laws of nursing, laws of health, and when you look at it, it really is basic common sense, isn't it? So what I'm ever investigating is I want to know more and more about each of these laws, if they are the true remedies, and I've found them to be. So this morning I was asked, how do I get over jet lag? Implementing this. You could ask me many questions. What would my answer be in many cases? I implement the sustain me principles. So let's begin by looking at sunshine. We've been scared away from the sun, haven't we? And yet it's the doctor in the sky. When there's ultraviolet rays from the sun, specifically ultraviolet B, when the ultraviolet, should be a V there, when the ultraviolet B rays touch the skin, they convert a form of cholesterol just under the skin. Now, did everyone hear that? What's converted? Cholesterol. They convert a form of cholesterol just under the skin to vitamin D. And vitamin D is essential for the assimilation and the utilization of calcium in the body. And we've got a lot of people now who are showing vitamin D deficiency because people aren't going out in the sun. We've been told that the sun's the enemy because it causes skin cancer. But we've been on this planet, well, the Bible says we've been on the planet about 6,000 years. My sister, who's a doctor of archaeology, would hotly debate that with me and claim it's millions of years. You know what I often say? When God created Adam, he looked actually 25 years of age, but he was 1 day old. So when you consider that, maybe some would consider that it's older than it is. But I believe in the Bible. And the Bible says that we're 6,000 years old, approximately. And skin cancer has only been around in the last, really the last 100 years. So what we've got to look at, remember, in fact, it's such an important word, we're going to give it a prominent spot at the top of the board. Why? Why are people getting skin cancer? Well, research today is showing that vitamin D deficiency can contribute to skin cancer. We need the sun because we need vitamin D. But can you see what's necessary for vitamin D? We need to have exposure to UVB. Glass blocks UVB and sunscreens block UVB. So people that are wearing sunscreens will be vitamin D deficient. So when Michael and I had a holiday last year in Thailand, I'd go down in the morning to lie in the sun by the pool. I didn't have sunscreen. I had something called wristwatch. 20 minutes front, 20 minutes back, underneath the umbrella. Because I know for my, and what's often called milky skin, that works well. If I had dark skin, I'd probably handle half an hour or 40 minutes. So people say, how much sun? Well, how long's a piece of string, they say in Australia. A piece of string can be an inch long or it can be 5 yards long. So it depends on you. If you've got blue eyes like me and light skin, you have to be a little bit more cautious. Andre, I think you can go for a long period of time. You've got a darker skin. Brown eyes, dark skin can handle a lot longer. But I would endeavour to say, Andre, if you hadn't been in the sun for 6 months and you spent an hour or two in the sun, you'd still be burnt. Have you experienced that? Yeah. Because my husband's first wife was Aboriginal, so Michael's 2 children are dark-skinned. And I saw that happen with my stepdaughter. She likes the computer, the piano, jigsaw puzzles. What's all that? Indoor activity. Went to the beach with her friends, yes. She was sore when she came home. But what happened, because her skin's dark, it went patchy. There were lighter bits and darker bits as she peeled. Your skin tells you, very important part of giving the body the right conditions is learning to do this. Listen. Listen. Because your body will speak to you. Have you ever been to a doctor or a health professional who won't listen to you? Very frustrating. Don't be that doctor. If the body speaks, you must listen. If you don't listen to the first whisper, the body will start screaming. And when it starts screaming, it's doing damage. So please listen. And don't wait till your skin feels like it's burning. I think we all know that. Oops, too late. So you'll get to know. Better to go a little bit cautious than a little bit over. I did this every day, twice a day, and by the end of the week I had a lovely golden brown tan. Now I can go into the sun for a little bit longer. And I had what's called a UVB tan. And the UVB tan, it lasts for a long time. A lot of tanning salads, because white ladies in Australia want a tan, and they go to tanning salons. Well, those lamps, they are UVA. They give a UVA tan. And that UVA tan does not last long, like the UVB tan. Vitamin D is essential in the assimilation of calcium. Calcium's called the king, and because it's called the king, it's been misunderstood. It's been called the king. And so many people take calcium supplements to strengthen their bones, but actually doesn't strengthen their bones. Do you know what it can end up doing? Settling on their bones as bone spurs. Because our bones are not made out of calcium. That might be shocking news to many. But first of all, why is it called the king? Because when the king gets into the cell, all the other minerals piggyback on the back of calcium. And the gardener knows this. The gardener calls the calcium the trucker of all the other nutrients, because when you up calcium in the soil, you automatically up all the other nutrients. Well, what are bones made of? Bones are made of 12 minerals and 64 trace minerals. Trace meaning minor amounts. So what are the 12 minerals? Yes, calcium and chromium and boron, also iron, magnesium, manganese, selenium, silica and sulfur, potassium and phosphorus and zinc. That's what bones are made of, and 64 trace. So it's not rocket science to determine what do bones need. That. Where are we going to find that? We're going to find that in the whole salt, the Celtic salt. The Celtic salt is a unique salt. It is the only salt that is a hand-harvested sea salt. It's called the Celtic salt because it's hand-harvested in the old Celtic tradition. And France have recognised the value of their salt trays And the 4.5 million acres that makes up in Brittany of where the salt is hand harvested, they've made a heritage site. I was so happy to hear that. That means you can't touch it. No one can touch that. It can't be contaminated. It can't be hurt. And one of the main areas where they have the salt flats, it's got a peninsula like this. So they've got these huge salt flats. And what happens is the wind and the sun come in a way that the water is evaporated quite quickly. And because the water is evaporated quite quickly in the Celtic salt, then the nutrients are retained, particularly a very important mineral called iodine. Iodine is required by the thyroid gland. If a person takes iodine, it's only in their blood for 20 minutes. So when we take a little bit of Celtic salt before each glass of water and we crunch it, in those crystals is where the parts per million, very minute amount of iodine is, along with other minerals. It's released and into our body. So when you take that Celtic salt, that tiny little bit before every glass of water, you're little by little all through the day maintaining your iodine levels. Isn't that wonderful news? So you can get minerals in your Celtic salt. Dr. Robert Thompson in the book The Calcium Lie, very interesting book. He says, when you take that little crystal of Celtic salt before every glass of water, have you been practicing it? Not hard to do, it's quite pleasant, isn't it? Before every glass of water, all you're doing is replacing the minerals you lost yesterday. And you're having steam saunas every day, so you're losing more minerals at the moment than most people. If you exercise, you're losing a bit more. Every time you're perspiring, you're losing a little bit more of those minerals. And of course, we put it on our food. And what's steamed vegetables without salt? What's avocado and tomato on a slice of sourdough bread without salt? Our palate tells us we need that little bit of salt. And the Bible talks about this in Matthew 5, verse 13. The Bible says, Jesus is speaking, he says, "Ye are the salt of the earth. If the salt has lost its savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men." Old English, I love the poeticness. If the salt has lost its savour, I'd like to suggest that the majority of salts that you buy, even those that are called sea salt, have lost their savour because they've lost their minerals. You see, of seawater, so seawater contains 92 minerals, and of those 92 minerals, 30% is sodium and 50% is chloride. And because sodium chloride makes up the largest amount, they're the first crystals formed. So they're scooped up, heated to a high temperature quickly, put aluminium with it so it runs freely and bleached. There's your table salt. So when the Bible says if the salt has lost its savour, I'd like to suggest that table salt, often called sea salt, it's lost its savour. It's lost all the other minerals because Celtic salt, it contains 82 minerals. Where are the other 10? They're in such pico proportion, barely measurable, that it's inevitable that some are lost in the evaporation process. So even though that Celtic salt might be a little bit more expensive, it's worth every cent because it's the best mineral supplement that you can take. Where else will we get minerals like this? Dark green leafy vegetables. In our dark green leafy vegetables, especially organic, dark green leafy vegetables, you will get a concentration of all these minerals. You look at the biggest boned creatures on the planet, the orangutan, the elephant, the giraffe, they're all vegetarians. Where do they get their bone strength? Greens, dark green leafy vegetables. Well, God was good to give us some more delicious greens than what they eat. They've got tough teeth and tongues that can handle the stringy grass. We've got, well, here down south you've got collard greens, lamb's quarters. They're two that we don't have in Australia, but we have got spinach and silver beet. So there's so many greens. That's where you'll get your minerals from. So minerals are important in the diet, but so is sunshine, because sunshine unlocks the door to get all the minerals inside the cell. And it was 1890s, 80% of children living in North London had rickets. And they were trying to find out the germ that caused rickets. What caused rickets? It was a vitamin D deficiency. One writer claimed that it was, and they laughed him to scorn. His reasoning was, but the gypsy children don't have rickets. Where are the gypsy children? Running through the mountains. But these children in London were in those streets with the high rise, so they hardly got any sun. And rickets is a vitamin D deficiency, so they weren't getting the minerals, so their bones weren't developing properly. Finally, in 1920, they acknowledged that rickets was a vitamin D deficiency. And then nurses were trained to have classes for mothers to show them how to put their children and their babies in the sun. Do we still have those classes? No. Do you know in Australia children are not allowed out of the classroom unless they've got sunscreen and a hat on? Oh, Australia's gone berserk. They've gone almost to the other extreme. Did you know that rickets is returning? Because children are not getting enough vitamin D because they're not out in the sunshine. I was at my daughter's house a couple of weeks ago and I looked at her little 6-year-old boy. His hair is white and his skin is brown. Now, they're white people, but where's that little boy all day? And her children, they're on 7 acres, they're just running barefoot all through the grass. Their feet, bottom of their feet's like leather. They're getting their earthing, they're getting their sunshine. They're healthy children. But it was quite a contrast. His hair was bleached white from the sun, but his skin was a browny colour. Isn't that what the teenagers are trying to get? The bleached hair. All they need to do is get out in the sunshine. So sunshine is vital. Our brain needs sunshine. How does our brain get sunshine? Through the eyes. The eyes are an extension of your brain. And it was probably about 20 years ago, scientists discovered on the retina a receptor site called melanopsin. And melanopsin is not involved in sight. Melanopsin is involved in brain function. And melanopsin is a receptor site that absorbs blue light. And the highest source of blue light is sunlight. And they found when adequate amounts of blue light were going into the brain, tactical reasoning increased, the ability to solve mathematical problems increased. So these poor children and their studies suffering because they're not even allowed to be in the sun. And in Australia, every playground now has big shade cloths over it. That's because a lot of Australians were getting skin cancer. Well, 6 to 10 sunburns in your lifetime can double your risk of skin cancer. Absolutely. But Australians have gone from lying out in the sun and working in the sun like lizards to the other extreme is they can't even go out into the sun. In Norway, I was looking at some figures on Norway from 1995 to early 2000s. Skin cancer rates rose something like 500%. And they found 2 causes. Norwegians aren't outside anymore. A lot of them are inside. Traditionally, they used to be outside farming. A lot of them are inside now. And they use sunscreen. So not getting enough sun because they're inside and using sunscreens, they claimed was the cause of the skin cancers. Eeh. So no, the sun is not the cause of skin cancer. Absolutely, overdoing it too much will damage the skin, and that can contribute. But it's vitamin D deficiency that is one is the biggest. Technology. The light from technology is a form of blue light. Not the same as sunlight, so you're not going to get the same benefits. But the problem is that if you look at your phone in the middle of the night, the message to your eye is, daytime, wake up. It's one of the worst things you can do for sleep, is look at screens. When the sun goes down at night, our whole body knows that. And when I read the book Why We Sleep, and I looked at technology, the eye and the brain, I used to do all my emails in the evening. No more. In fact, when I see that sunset, you know what my iPad does? Well, I cause it to. I close it. Enough. Enough. And we'll look at sleep also in these lectures this morning. Dr. Neil Nedley, in his book Depression, A Way Out, he found that 80% of his depressed patients, their circadian rhythm was out. What's your circadian rhythm? This is the rhythm that your brain runs at. And when it's out of balance, that's a contributing factor to depression. And what he discovered was that when your eyes experience the first hour of light in a day, it resets your circadian rhythm. And how many people with depression can't sleep, get to bed too late, miss out on that early hours of the morning, but it's the early hours, that morning light, that resets your circadian rhythm. So, and isn't it easy to look at the sun rise? It's usually so beautiful. Early in the morning. God almost asks us to look there because it's, you know, the sun on the morning clouds. In Australia, we're an hour and a half from the coast, the east coast of Australia. And sometimes if Michael and I have got something on down on the coast, we'll stay the night. And if we do stay the night, we always go to the beach early and do a run up and down the beach and dive in the sea. Yes, winter and summer. But there's always photographers with their cameras all set up. What for? That early morning light. And it's very beautiful when you see that over the sea. And science now shows it's actually important for brain health, for body health, for our eyes to get that early morning sun. What's the old saying? Early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy and wise. Now science is proving those old sayings to be correct and why they are correct. So our eyes need sun, our brain needs sun. In the book Better Eyesight Without Glasses by Dr. William Bates, very interesting book. He nearly lost his license after writing that book. The optometrist didn't like his book because what's their business? Glasses. And the last chapter of his book I found very interesting. He lists these laws of health as laws that will sustain eye health. And he says your eyes can't get enough sunshine. And yet what are many people told today? Don't let the sunshine go on your eyes. He says if you come out of a dark room and the sun's too strong, close your eyelids, look up at the sun and just let the sun's rays go through your eyelids for 10-20 seconds. Put your head down, open your eyes, and you'll be used to the sun. So that's a way to get used to the sun. Sunglasses I don't wear. I think if I was going to be snow skiing and it was a blue sky, full sun and white snow, I think I'd wear sunglasses. There may be a time to wear sunglasses, but those eyes need to get those messages from the sun because it's light and dark signals that are fed through the optic nerve to a control centre in the brain where your body clock is located. And your body clock is partly what balances the circadian rhythm. So our eyes need sun, our body needs sun, our skin needs sun. And any part of the body that's not working well, make part of your program lying in the sun. Put it in the sun. I said to one lady who had an ulcer on her leg, I said, put it in the sun every day. No, no, she said, there's germs in the air. They might jump into my wound. Well, on Monday morning we showed it's not the germ, is it? It's the condition of the body. I said, no, you need that sunshine. That sunshine penetrates very deep. What happens if you've got a plant that's got fungal growth on it and you put it in the sunshine? It just kills it, yeah. So the sun's rays are healing rays. So the importance of sunshine in our health is probably more than most people realise. I'd like to now look at the importance of sleep. We're going to look at water on Friday morning. Sleep. Sleep is a big issue today, and you know why it's a big issue? Because there are so many people that are suffering from insomnia. And there is a cause, because there is always a cause. There's no doubt about that. There's a tiny little gland in the base of your brain called the pineal gland. And the pineal gland releases 4 hormones every night. It's summertime here in Alabama. So at the moment, these hormones are released between 10 and 3 a.m. In Australia, it's winter time. So in Australia at the moment, being winter time, it's released between 9 and 2 a.m. And these hormones are only released in that time. You see, light and dark signals are fed through the optic nerve to the control centre, and it's the light and dark signals that determine it. That's why when the sun goes down at night, your body knows it. What are the hormones that are released in that time? Melatonin. Melatonin is called the fix and rejuvenate nighttime hormone. This is the hormone that is responsible for increased healing while we sleep. But it's only released while we sleep. If you can't sleep and you lie there very, very still and very, very quiet, guess what? You do get some. But if you put the light on, if you get up, that stops. Melatonin, fix and rejuvenate, nighttime hormone. Serotonin, this is your mood hormone. If you want to feel good, go to bed early. Because going to bed early allows your serotonin levels to be released. We had a doctor do our program, and she told me this story. She said, my husband and I, we're both doctors, but we're alternate. And she said, our first little boy, we just let him do whatever he wanted. He could go to bed whenever he wanted. He could eat whenever he wanted. But she said, by the time he turned 7, we did not like our child. He was so precocious. He was so obnoxious. And we were starting to argue, husband and wife. So we made a decision. We're going to put the boy to bed early. So we've got a couple of times, couple of hours to ourselves. Do you know that when children see that parents have a united front, they know they've got no hope. There's no hope against that. And so they started to put the little boy to bed at 7:30. He used to go to bed at 11 o'clock at night. And they soon get the message. When you're consistent and when you're firm and you don't get angry, they eventually get it. She said, something happened. She said, my husband and I had a lovely evening together. But she said, we got a different child. A different child. See, he was now getting his serotonin levels. He was no longer grumpy and cranky, plus that child responded to now having some guidelines in the home. Do you know children are very comfortable when they've got guidelines? You know why? Because they know what they can do, they know what they cannot do, and that's a very safe, comfortable area for a child. So she said, when my next child came along, we immediately began to have guidelines in the home and put the child to bed earlier to boost that serotonin. Epithalamin. Epithalamin is a hormone that increases learning capacity. So if you want to increase your learning capacity, and on Saturday morning I'm going to show you how we should be learning new things right up until the day we die. So to be able to learn new things, we need to go to bed early so that their epithalamin levels are released. I say to teachers, can you tell the children that had late nights? Oh yes. Their attention span is not as good, they can't retain, they can't understand. Epithalamin increases learning capacity and slows down aging. Everyone over the age of 25 likes that one. Don't look too closely at Mick Jagger and those rock stars who are now in their 60s, 70s. Very lined. From a distance, they might look okay, but they age very, very quickly. The last one is arginine vasotocin. Arginine vasotocin is a very interesting hormone because this is our natural painkiller. Did you know you have a natural painkiller? As we go through this week, you'll find that our body has everything we need. We just need to give it the right conditions so that we encourage the release of these things that we need. Arginine vasotocin is your natural painkiller, and it's released when we need it. And if it is used at night, because maybe we're in some sort of pain, there's a waste given off. And if that waste is not eliminated, then we can't access our arginine vasotocin the next night. So how do we cause a release of it? Well, you're releasing yours at the moment, if you're using it, because of the steam sauna perspiration. So exercise. You might not have a steam sauna at night or to be able to do in your home, but everyone can exercise. When you exercise in the day, you increase circulation, you increase metabolic rate, and you also increase the throwing off of waste. And that waste is, a lot of it, or part of it, is being given off because we used our arginine vasotocin, our natural painkiller. I have met a few people that are managing serious injuries. Some of them, the serious injuries, usually from accidents, happened in their 30s, and all the doctor could offer was painkillers, and you know the long-term use of that is not good. And so these people took control of their lives. I love hearing stories of people who just took control. They strengthened their core muscles. Did you know that all your core muscles are connected to your spine? And when you strengthen your core muscles by push-ups, by your core strengthening exercises, rebounding, when you strengthen your core muscles, you automatically help to pull the spine into place. Our massage therapist at Misty, she said, I can tell the strength of a body by the strength of the core, those core muscles. So strengthen those core muscles, and that helps to hold the spine. So to get strong core muscles, we need to exercise every day. And so these people, I've met about 5 in my travels now, serious, really serious, life-threatening injuries, usually to their spine. They're medication-free, pain-free, and managing. But, as one man said to me, I work out for 1 hour every lunchtime, and he said, and I cycle after work every day. He said, I have to do that every day. Did you hear that? Every day. He said, if I do that every day, I have no back pain. He's got to maintain that core strength. And he was excited to hear about the arginine vasotocin. So the arginine vasotocin, the natural painkiller, is released while we sleep. But we need to exercise in the day for 2 reasons. Strengthen the core, strengthen the muscles to compensate and hold that injury, but also to cause a release of the waste from using arginine vasotocin. It was in 2018, I was in Sheffield, London, giving meetings. The plane was a little bit late, and so I always go to the bookshop. I love reading. And I saw a book called Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. It was written only a year earlier in 2017. So this is 2018. It was a fascinating book. And his conclusions I want to show you today. I learned a lot from this book. In the 1950s, there was a lot of research begun on sleep because it's really only this last century, the 20th century, that sleep problems arose. And have you noticed it's around the time that electric lights and technology arose? People are turning night into day. They started to do studies on rats at first. You see, rats, the way rats' system works is very similar to humans, and rats only live 2 years, so they can see what would happen to a rat in 2 years would usually happen to a human in 75, 80 years. So they found that there were periods of night where the eyes moved rapidly, and there are periods of night where the eyes were still. When the eyes moved rapidly, the brain was moving. When the eyes were still, the brain was relatively still. And then they did experiments on people. One guy even did it on his 2-year-old girl, and they found the same thing. And these happened in 90-minute cycles through the night. So the non-rapid eye movement time, they called it non-rapid eye movement, what they discovered was that in this time of the night there is a courier service. And a courier service meaning that short-term memory in our hippocampus was being couriered or taken up to the top of the brain, the cortex. So while we sleep, our short-term memory unit is being emptied, and all the information is being taken up to the long-term storage unit. The other thing that happened in non-rapid eye movement was a cleaning system. It's like the nightly house clean. It's like the streets of the city at night. That's when the cleaning happens, isn't it? And the nightly cleaning system is done by the glymphatic system. The glymphatic system is made up of glial cells, and that's our brain's vacuum cleaner. What does it clean up? It cleans up waste from neuronal activity. It cleans up waste from the combustion of glucose and oxygen in the cell. It can also clean up negative emotions. Isn't that good news? But there's a lot more happening in rapid eye movement time. In rapid eye movement time, this is when a filing system happens. Now, do you remember I said the courier system takes the memories from the short-term memory unit, which is the hippocampus, down at the back here, up to the cortex? But it's not just put in any old way. It's done in order. You might have heard the old saying, nerves that lie together fire together. What it does is it files in a system. So all our negative emotions are filed in the same spot. All our positive emotions are filed in the same spot. Have you noticed when everything goes, or when something goes wrong, everything goes wrong? Have you noticed when something goes right, nearly everything goes right? Because the nerves that lie together fire together. Dr. Matthew Walker is an atheist, and he said, in this part of the book, he said, it's almost as if sleep has an intelligence. Now, if I was talking to him, I'd say, that's right, mate. Created by God. We're just not an accident. We're just not chance. No. The Bible says in Genesis 1:26 that God created man in his own image. What an honour. And no less the brain. So isn't it interesting that atheists are studying the brain and they're just confronted with the fact that there's actually order in here, and God is a God of order. Now it appears that dreaming has a lot to do with how our memories are filed. The only time we remember our dreams really is if we wake up in the middle of them. Have you noticed? What also happens in rapid eye movement time is there's a consolidation of what you have learnt through the day. It's in rapid eye movement time where the inventions happened. And the man that put together the periodic table, there was one section he could not get, so he slept on it. and early in the morning he got it. Don't we often say sleep on it? You never say wake on it, do you? And there's also the story of a guy who was a brilliant pianist and he was learning a new piece. He just could not get one bit. He slept, woke up in the morning, ran to the piano, got it. That's where the inventions happen. That's our creative time. Now these two, they work together in 90-minute intervals through the night. And Dr. Matthew Walker, after all his research and all the other people's research that he'd gathered, came to the conclusion, we need 8 hours a night. 8 hours, not negotiable. And when you consider the pineal gland and its secretions, you can see we've got a choice. It can be go to bed at 8 p.m. and get up at 4 a.m. or go to bed at 9 and get up at 5. That's probably my favourite, 9 to 5. Or at a stretch in the summer, it could be 10 to 6. Then we've got a choice. So let's choose 9 to 5 and see what happens in those times. We're going to look at non-rapid eye movement when it's the most active. And we're going to look at rapid eye movement when it is most active. And knowing this explains a lot. So the first is the first hour and a half, 9 to 10:30. From 9 to 10:30, non-rapid eye movement takes up 80% of the activity and rapid eye movement only 20%. Moving on in the night from 10:30 to midnight, rapid eye movement is now 60%. Non-rapid eye movement, rapid eye movement comes up to 40%. And then the next hour and a half, which is 12 to 1:30, it's about 50-50. 50 non-rapid and 50 rapid eye movement time. So 12 to midnight's about equal. So 1:30 to 3 a.m. Now we've got a turnaround of non-rapid eye movement goes to 40%, rapid eye movement goes to 60%, and then our last 2 hours, which is 3 to 5 a.m., 20% non-rapid and 80% rapid eye movement time. Looking at these figures, it explains so much. One thing that the cleaning system does, it cleans up any little amyloid or calcified plaques that can start to build up in the front part of the brain. So I'm going to quote two very famous people that boasted on only needing 5 hours sleep a night. One was Margaret Thatcher. Now I think those 5 hours of sleep a night was not it was not the early part of the night, was it? Her 5 hours probably started at about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. How did she spend the last 20 years of her life? Severe dementia, Alzheimer's. And what they have found in Alzheimer and dementia patients, when they've done post-mortems on them, they've got amyloid plaques built up here. Now this is where our reason, intellect and judgment is. When someone's got Alzheimer's, how's their reason, intellect and judgment? Gone, not there. And they have discovered that it's these amyloid calcified plaques that are inhibiting reason, intellect and judgment. The other one is an American president, is, what's his name, the actor? Ronald Reagan. How did he spend the last 20 years of his life? Severe dementia, Alzheimer's. And he also boasted of only needing 5 hours sleep a night. Margaret Thatcher, brilliant mind. You know, she showed a brilliant mind even as a young woman. That's not an easy job to be the Prime Minister of England. And God never ever designed that our brains deteriorate back to like little children in the latter years of our life. The most reliable history book we've got is the Bible, and I have not read of dementia or Alzheimer's in the Bible, have you? So it's a fairly recent phenomenon. So the question arises, why? Well, what keeps people awake? It's not reading, is it? In fact, if I want to go to sleep, you know what I do? Read. They always put me to sleep. No, it's technology. That's why in our home, at our retreat, technology gets turned off 8:30 at night. To encourage everyone to do what? Go to bed. Yeah. Now, we have had people say, Barbara, you would have a very popular health retreat if you had no Wi-Fi. I said, I don't think so. We have people coming to our program that have got little children at home. Like, Jason, you've got a young family at home. You need to be in contact with your wife. Your wife needs to be able to contact you because all sorts of things can arise when you've got little children. And we have businessmen come, businesswomen that need to pay their staff midweek. Now, I think that we would not be popular if we had no Wi-Fi, but we also want to show people and teach people the dangers. Remember, it's what it's called, silent killer. Cannot see it. And so, but, you know, and certainly I enjoy it. I can WhatsApp my family to the other side of the world. I certainly appreciate that. But my phone is out of my room and it's turned off when I go to sleep at night. So use the technology for your benefit, not for your weakening the human body. And also, teenagers, they'll be on it half the night if you let them, isn't that right? So turn it off. Turn it off. And allow yourself to have a good sleep. If you're going to charge your phones, your iPads, your computers, please in another room while you sleep. That's one of the things that interferes with sleep, is not only allowing our eyes to see the technology after dark. Now, these television screens aren't quite as bad, because when you're sitting watching something, your eyes know it's dark out there and it's not all consuming like the phone. So if you're looking at the phone, if you're looking at the iPad, if you're looking at the computer, it's all consuming. Whereas a screen like this is back. So that's one area, is the blue light that telling us that it's daytime wake up. Also, what's going in there? You can't watch, even on a screen, you can't watch an exciting or even horror movie and then go to sleep, can you? In fact, if you want to go to sleep by 9, you've got to start working at it at 7 o'clock. Isn't that true? You've got to start winding down. Same with the children. If you want them in bed at 7, at 5 to 7 you can't suddenly stay after rolling round and wrestling in the lounge room. Okay, bedtime. No, it doesn't. You'll have World War III then. Now you've got to start winding it down. Get the lights on low. Get a boring book. Have a hot shower. Have most of your food at breakfast and lunch. See how these sustain me principles come in to support sleep. Make sure you're well hydrated. Sunshine in the day helps you sleep better at night. Have an electromagnetic field-free bedroom. Some people sleep with a literal Christmas tree of lights around their bed. So be careful of that. If you can't sleep, what can you do? Cognitive behavioural therapy. Let me explain cognitive behavioural therapy. A lady said to me, I can't sleep, I just cannot sleep. I said, well, my suggestion is never say that again. Now, we cannot lie, because, oh, what a tangled web we weave when at first we begin to deceive, says Wordsworth. And the Bible says, lying lips are an abomination to God, but they that deal truly are his delight. You cannot lie. I'm going to try and sleep. I'm going to train myself into sleep, because our cells are very obedient to our brain. And if we say, I can't sleep, guess what? The body goes. It says, oh, righto, we can't sleep. So you can retrain yourself back into sleep. And it might not happen overnight, and it might not happen in a week or two, but little by little you can train yourself back into sleep. I used to sleep 6 hours a night. I used to say to people, since I turned 50, I only need 6 hours. I feel fine on 6 hours. And then I read the book, Why We Sleep. And I realised what a deception it is. When you have 4 hours sleep, you feel like it. But when you have 6 hours, you actually feel okay. And what Dr. Matthew Walker showed, that 10 nights of 6 hours sleep a night, 50% less cognitive performance, 50% less physical performance. It's a total deception, the 6 hours. One lady said, well, I've been having 4 hours most of my life and now I'm up to 6. I'm pretty happy. I said, I'd be happy with that too. You're getting there. You're training yourself into it. So I trained myself back into 8 hours. How do I do that? Well, I've got a problem in my brain. It's called the chat room. So when I wake up, say 4:30, I used to get up, but I don't now. My brain goes into the chat room. Okay, well, I'm going to build a garden there, and I've got to do this, and that's the birthday for that grandchild, so I've got to and I've just finished knitting for the little, which I did last night, and I just finished knitting for my youngest grandchild. That's where my brain goes. Now I need buttons for that. Where am I going to get the buttons? It's this chat room. I've got to get out of that chat room. If I stay in the chat room, I will never sleep. So how do I get out of the chat room? Well, I love memorising. And so I'll go through my memory verses. And the largest memory that I've done was James chapter 1. It's got 27 verses in it. So I'll go through that. And because you have to think about what's next, you're out of the chat room. And in the morning I think, where did I get to? I think I got to verse 13. Halfway along. Another way you can get out of the chat room is breathing. 5 seconds in, always through the nose, 5 seconds out. Do that 10 times. I know sometimes I've done it and I think, I only got to 5, I think. If you get to 10 and you're still not asleep, do it again. Do it again. One lady said, I get out of the chat room by picturing someone in my life who was very important to me. Maybe it was a great aunt or a great uncle. I know who, with Michael, it would be his grandfather. His grandfather was like him, drove very fast cars, did everything fast. Michael had a slow, safe father, and Michael has a slow, safe son. But his grandfather. And his grandfather got a new E-type Jag and took the boys for a drive, and he said, what would you like me to do? And he said, and Michael said, do the ton, which is 100 miles an hour. Very exciting. I think that's what Michael would picture. See what you do? You picture someone in your life who is very important to you. The Bible says in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, in everything give thanks. So that in another book I read by Adriana Huffington called The Science of Sleep, she said when you can't sleep, you lie there and you start listing all the things you're thankful for. Thank you so much, Father, that I have legs that walk, that I have eyes that see, that I'm not in a Siberian work camp with newspaper for my blankets. Thank you that I have a comfortable bed. And just list all the things that you're thankful for. And that's another way to get out of the chat room. So there are a few things that will stop sleep, and one is looking at technology. 80% of Americans sleep with their phones, and the pillow's no protection unless it's made out of lead. You've got to get it out of the room. Getting annoyed with the fact that you can't sleep, you'll never sleep then. And getting into the chat room, that will stop sleep. Having technology all around your bed. Have a look at your bedding. It should be out of natural fibre. The window should be open. How long since you changed your pillow? You know, we lose a lot of fluid when we sleep, a lot of moisture. So pillows and mattresses can tend to get mouldy if they're not being aired, if they're not being washed. So check all of those things. And you can, little by little, train yourself back into sleep. One man used to go to bed at midnight. He started to go to bed at 11:30. A week later, he went to bed at 11. A week later, he went to bed at 10:30. A week later, and that's how he did it. He trained himself back into sleep. And when you realise all the amazing thing that's happened while we sleep, it's a good idea to protect our brain and body health by training ourselves back into sleep.